Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our final webinar of 2025. Before we begin proceedings, I'd just like to start with an acknowledgement of country. Gippsland Critical Minerals acknowledges the Gunai Kurnai people as the traditional custodians of country that encompasses the proposed Fingerboards project area. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and those emerging, and we recognise their enduring connection to the lands, water, culture, and the community that we all share. And we also extend that respect to any First Nations people joining us on our webinar today. We've got a great session ahead. Today you'll be hearing from our presenters who will walk through the latest developments, opportunities and progress across the Gippsland Critical Minerals landscape. We also welcome your questions. So if you could please pop your questions into the chat at any time during the session. We'll come to them during our dedicated Q&A time at the end. To start us off, it's my pleasure to welcome Michelle Wood, CEO of Gippsland Critical Minerals. Michelle will provide a project update and share some of the key highlights and achievements for GCM throughout 2025. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Mick. Oh, sorry, there we go. Thanks, Mick. And I'd also like to acknowledge the Gunai people as the traditional custodians of the land and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to our last webinar for 2025. As Mick mentioned, it's been a big year and an important one for the project and for the work we're doing to deliver the rescope. As most of you know, it was in October 2024 that we were granted an extension of an existing retention licence, and that retention licence was granted on the condition of us meeting a number of milestones, and chief among them were rescoping the project and resubmitting it to the Department of Planning for an EES self-referral by December this year. To get that work underway, we began early consultation and we continued to make changes to the project and rescope through an iterative design process, which meant, when we got feedback, we changed and we made changes and continually make changes as we go in response to feedback and new learnings. On the screen now, you'll see, I guess, a good snapshot of those changes. That's the project map that you can see online. The purple area is the new mining area. The sandy area refers to the 2021 area. The buffer, which is a key change. But what we're presenting here is really a project that is smaller in size and scale in terms of mining rate and the footprint, which is reduced by about 27% from the previous proposal. We've got the 1.5 kilometre buffer to put in place a greater distance between any mining activity and the river. And you'll see, you can see it on our website, but that old area was 600 metres to the river. This is 1.5 kilometres at least. We avoid sensitive gullies. There's no mining in the gullies. There's less impact on local roads and no impact on the Fingerboards junction. We've got a new strategy for tailings, which will be stored in pit. And then we've got progressive backfilling with a new rehab strategy with faster fillings of voids. So the voids themselves will be smaller than that was previously proposed. That enables us to fill them faster so that there's not as much dust. And then we can try and get the land. We've set a goal of getting the land back to its current use within 2 to 3 years afterwards. We've got a clearer plan around water with around 3.3 gigalitres of an annual water balance, and we're looking at multiple water sources for that water. We've commenced monitoring work already, and some of you will have seen us either on our Facebook or out in the field on dust, weather, noise, and bores. And all of this work is about making sure that the future decisions that we make about the design of the project are based on real data, not assumptions. One of the key aspects of the work we've been doing is community engagement and continually trying to listen to what you've got to say, bring it back into the project and make changes accordingly. And that also means going back through all the 900 submissions received last time and making sure that we're addressing the impacts identified in the Minister's assessment of the project in 2021. That has really driven and shaped everything that we're doing. Over this year, our engagement has become more local, more detailed and more focused, particularly as we've been able to define some of the key aspects of the project. And I think what we're doing is working. Our latest polling, which is independent, shows that support for the project, either those who support it or strongly support it, is at 49.8%, with nearly 70% of residents now not opposed. To me, this reflects that the community is looking for the 300 jobs and the skills that we'll be providing, and clear evidence of how the project will be delivered, and there'll be more of that to come. Over the past year, we've built a team. We've expanded we've got a Bairnsdale office. We've expanded the CRG. We've brought Mick on board and others. We've held regular drop-ins and briefings. We've logged thousands of interactions across meetings, calls, emails, and our online channels. We've got early engagement with First Nations, and cultural heritage work on the site has also progressed, but this remains a core priority for us. And in terms of where we are right now, we have lodged the draft EES self-referral with the Department of Planning's Impact Assessment Unit. It's still in draft form, and we've recently received approval for the work plan for our mining and rehabilitation demonstration pit, which is very exciting. So that approval is a great step forward. It's an opportunity for us to show the mine and the process to you. We'll begin that work next year, and that will really enable us to show you and test our design choices in real world conditions. So it provides a clearer understanding of, we'll be able to show you the mining, the backfilling, and how the rehab performs on site. You'll be able to view it from community platforms. You'll be able to come down and do site tours. So I think that's a really practical, good way that you'll be able to interact and put some detail around the project as we progress. It also obviously creates opportunities for local contractors and suppliers. We've got our East Gippsland First Procurement Policy, and this is a really great opportunity to get going and put that plan into action as well. I'm going to hand over now to Brian Chadwick. Brian is our Technical Director for AECOM. AECOM are our lead environmental consultants. They're leading all of the work to feed into the overall environmental assessment process. They look at doing all the monitoring work. They're doing all of the impact studies. So he'll talk through a bit more of the detail now that we've done this self-referral. But I just want to thank each of you on the webinar and to the community more generally for your feedback, for your honesty, for the time that you've given to each of us through the year. Your insights genuinely have shaped the work that we're doing, and I think we've got a better project for it. I'd be remiss not to thank the team as well, who have put in a significant amount of effort and open-mindedness as we've sought to navigate, some various challenges, various opinions, and some decisions have had to be made. I think we've made really great progress. There's more to do. We'll continue to work openly, respectfully, and alongside the community. So I'll throw to you, Brian.
Thanks, Michelle. So a quick introduction to myself. So I'm Technical Director at AECOM, and as Michelle said, we've been appointed as the lead environment consultant. We got appointed early this year, and we're basically supporting GCM in consolidating, coordinating all the environmental impact assessments that are going to be done for assessing this project. So really what I'm going to talk to you today, we'll go to the next slide, is really where we're at on that journey. So the first step in this overall environmental impact assessment is the submission of the referral. Now, when you look at a lot of the online Department of Planning information, it talks about a referral. So essentially, when we talk about a self-referral, it's what the meaning here is that the proponent it's self-referred. So GCM in this instance are putting in a referral. So why is it needed? So under the Environmental Effects Act, which is a process under the Victorian planning system, is that you have to put in a referral for any project where there's potential significant environmental effects. And for the Victorian government, stay back, go back one. It's the process which allows the government to assess the project and then to determine whether it's suitable with all the environmental mitigation measures. It is also, as Michelle talked about, it's a condition of the retention license. So why is it done now? Essentially for two key reasons. One is that the project has got to a point in terms of the redesign that, in our view, we've met and are able to address the various outcomes of the 2021 USPS assessment. There is also a deadline, which you can see at the 11th of December. Essentially, that is there such that rather than continuing to delay the process, we're now at a point and it's to bring it to a decision on how to proceed. Next slide. So where are we at? So with that deadline in mind, we submitted a draft to the Department of Planning, to the Minister for Planning, in September. So that was the draft, and we got comments on that draft in November. We updated in terms of responding to those comments on just last week, and we're still waiting in terms of a decision for it to be accepted. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But broadly, in terms of, you can see the steps here, is that once it has been submitted and accepted, it is largely using the Minister for Planning's court to decide. It is essentially three options: whether an EES, environmental effect statement, is required, which was what was done last time, or an EES is not required, and either with conditions such as preparing an environmental report, or that an EES is not required. And if an EES is not required, essentially the minister is making a decision that there isn't any significant environmental effects, and we can go through the planning process. That is not expected here. Next one. So just quickly in terms of timelines, our expectation is that very shortly that the referral will be accepted. We've got ongoing discussions with the Department of Planning and various offices, so we hope to have more specific information in terms of that very shortly. Once it's been accepted, the next three steps are largely out of GCM's control. It's a decision by the Minister for Planning in terms of the impact assessment process, whether it is in the US, as I said, or it's a no US with conditions. Once that decision's been made, there is draft scoping requirements which will be published. Essentially, that's the term of reference for the environmental impact assessment. It outlines what matters need to be considered, and the process to be followed. That will be exhibited, and members of the community will have an opportunity to comment on those draft scoping requirements, and there'll be more information on that when we have certainty and timing. And then sometime after the draft scoping requirements are published, submissions have been received, the Department of Planning and ultimately the Minister for Planning will publish the final scoping requirements. So that's where we're at with the referral. Happy to take any questions.
I think we do questions at the end, Brian, so I might hand to Mick. And Mick's our new East Gippsland Community Engagement Lead. I think you've been 2 months in the job, and I thought he might take everyone through just briefly sort of the work we've been doing, what he's hearing, and what's coming up over the next little bit of time. So I'll hand to you, Mick.
No worries. Thank you, Michelle. So coming into the important time we have coming up with the demo pit. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. We're going to be engaging in a variety of ways with the demo pit. So we will continue to have drop-in sessions. We will do, a variety of media, social and otherwise, as well as videography and some 3D visuals of the demo pit to keep people engaged and involved. There's also going to be the opportunity for the public to visit the demonstration pit. and keep people engaged that way as well. There'll be more information coming on that in early 2026. And just as I wanted to also mention that there will be some standalone visits for First Nations community to be able to visit the site in a culturally safe way and also to speak with our technical team. Next slide, please, Shannon. Um, Coming into the year ahead, we're going to do a few little changes to the way we're engaging. While we will remain with having drop-in sessions and allowing people to come to us, we're also going to come to you. So we'll be out in the community establishing what we call high traffic visits. So we're going to bring the GCM community engagement team to areas of real high visitation. So places like shopping centres, local events, festivals, to make sure that we are getting people, giving their perspective, hearing from every different segment of the community, and getting people that otherwise may not have the time or inclination to engage, but also interacting with them because their insights are valuable as well. One thing I would love to also add is that we're going to add the Fernbank Hall to our drop-in session venues. It's very important, I think, that we're doing this because it means that we're going to have those venues that are right near the mine site. It's very important that we have the perspective of those communities that are living right there in the thick of things. I think it's very important. If you live nearby, you will probably see the impacts first. So come talk to us and have a conversation. We'd love to hear from you. But all these approaches, they really come down to one thing. It's just everyone having a genuine chance to shape the project. Sort of no matter where you live, no matter what you look like or where you come from, we want to hear from you. We want to understand your perspectives, and I'm always here for that, definitely. What we will also do in the first quarter next year, just as a quick little exercise in giving you an idea of the map of how things look and the lay of the land. In January, we'll hold a drop-in session, a high traffic visit, and also demonstration pit visits. Coming into February, we'll have a drop-in session. We'll have a meeting of our CRG, which is exceptionally important to GCM. And also, we will be popping up at a large local event, and also, as I said, demonstration pits as required. Now, moving into March, I'm going to have 2 high traffic visits and then demonstration pit visits as well. There will be a system set up for visits to the demonstration pit, and I look forward to sharing a little bit more on that with you soon. If you have a look at the year ahead, it's a big year. I can't wait to get out there and chat with you all. But we're going to have 46 engagement activities planned across the calendar year, and there's a mix of all those different types of engagement. But there's a really strong emphasis on being visible, being in the community where we're needed, where people want to interact with us. And so we're going to come to you as much as we possibly can. Next slide, if we could, please, Shannon. Also, this is just a personal thing from me to everybody out there. I would love to talk to any of you. So please, I welcome your feedback. We all do. Come to our office. We have an office here in Bairnsdale now at 50 Forge Creek Road, or drop me an email directly. Give us a call. We're always available. I'll always, reach out and I'm happy to have a chat. Look forward to it. Can't wait to get into 2026. And thank you for the community, for the respectful and great way they've engaged with me so far, and look forward to more of it.
Great, thanks, Mick. And just a quick reminder to anyone, if you want to ask a question, just to pop it in the chat. We've had a few questions come in so far, so I'll just, some of them are just topics, not specific questions. So I might just read out the first one and then it's sort of more technical, Brian. So we've also got Stefan Walmerans, our technical lead for the project, on the line too. So I'll throw this to you, Brian, and maybe Stefan, if you want to jump in, jump in. But the question's about water-soluble polymer applications, so flocculants and our use thereof, I imagine. So Brian, do you want to maybe talk through our use of flocculant and some of the lab work I know that we've done?
I think actually Stefan was gonna
Oh,
take
sorry,
that.
Stefan.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take that. Yeah, so we do use a what's called an anionic polyacrylamide based flocculant in the tailings component of the project that's used to just improve separation between solid and solid particles that's suspended in the water. So what we've been doing this year is doing a test work program on that flocculant to optimize dose rates for that and see at what dose rates we have optimum separation of water and flocculant. So that's water and solid particles. So that program's being done, and that informs what the dose rates that we'll be using in the upcoming demonstration pit. The polyacrylamide itself is non-toxic. It's not harmful to aquatic life. I know there has been questions about whether components of the flocculant is harmful to aquatic life. The liquid flock that we'll be using in the demonstration pit, that does have an oil carrier phase that effectively carries the polyacrylamide at very high concentrations. That could be harmful to aquatic life, but that phase is only about 10 to 30% of the total flock makeup, and at the dose rates that we'll be using it, we are several hundred times lower concentration than any harmful dose. So we're very confident that there's no environmental risk as a result of the flocculant.
Thanks, Stefan. I might just ask you to follow up on one bit there. So we've done lab testing on this, and just when you talked about the phase of the flocculant, phases sounds like a time, not a component part, if you know what I mean. So I know what you mean because I've been in all these meetings with you, but I think what you're saying is that we're using the flocculant at a low dose, and therefore, and the sort of dosages that have been spoken about are different. And we've confirmed it. We've done.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly correct.
Okay. All right. And they've got another question, so I'm just going to bring it up. If anyone's got any follow-ups, just pop it in the chat. Revegetation. I think that's the only that I've just got as a comment. They'd like to know more about revegetation. So Mick, I think that's over to you for that one.
Yeah, sure. So since the majority of the disturbed areas are currently pasture, our focus is really putting that land back into productive pasture as quickly as possible. So that's something that we've heard really clearly from local farmers. They want to see that happen, and that's really guided our approach. So that means that the Grassy Woodlands Restoration Project, in the form that was discussed in 2021, is no longer the preferred rehab method. Instead, the focus is really on establishing pasture really quickly. And basically, that has proven success in the region, mitigating the risk from sediment runoff. All of this will be validated through the demonstration pit, and that replicates sort of key stages of the project. We're also going to make sure that we're testing some soil types with monitoring to continue several years after the trial. And all these results will be published as part of that process. So I think that's very important to remember, that it's all about transparency, and the results will be published.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Mick. Next question is on surveys and the sort of survey works that we're doing, and this is specifically related to the work that we're doing on the baseline monitoring and what we're doing in the field at the moment. So Brian, that's right up your alley, that one.
Thanks, Michelle. In terms of responding to that, one of the key things that we need to do for the environmental impact assessment is obviously establish existing conditions. And so that's in regard to all aspects and all elements of the environment. So a series of surveys and studies have commenced, and we'll continue to establish and re-establish the current existing conditions. So that's the water environment, it's the air environment, it's the noise environment, it's the social environment, and ecological biodiversity. So we have appointed a series of specialists against those surveys. A lot of them are seasonally based and seasonally focused. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to commence that to by winter and spring surveys largely done. We're also moving into summer and autumn, and then we'll continue through to the next year. It's a pretty standard requirement. We've got the fortunate we've got a lot of historic data, and we're obviously making sure that we don't have any data gaps and there's any uncertainty for what the impact assessments that we'll start to get developed next year. Yes, Michelle.
Okay. Yep, that's true. And just sort of building on that, one of the questions we've got is around the overall project planning process. So I think those questions, that's the only topic that's been listed in the Q&A. So I'm hoping that those questions have been answered by the presentation you did earlier, Brian. I think in terms of timing, just so everybody knows, we're still in that draft EES self-referral stage. So we've given basically a summary document, as Brian mentioned earlier, to the Impact Assessment Unit, Department of Planning. They've got to go look through it. They've got to give us feedback. Once they give us feedback, we go on another loop of a time to address that, and then we'll get a guidance on whether or not we're going down an EES pathway or another type of approval pathway. And that's where we're at the moment. So until we get that guidance, it's difficult to really assess, the next steps in that approval process and therefore sort of the project development. But the demonstration pit is really the next opportunity, and that work that we do there will feed through all of the studies and that Brian's just mentioned. I'm hoping that answers the questions on the overall project planning process, but we're planning for a multi-year approval process with multiple opportunities for the community to get involved and make submissions. So we've also got a question about equipment hire or I guess a topic that's been raised is how we're hiring equipment. Is that something that you want to touch on, Stefan? That seems appropriate for your work and maybe specifically some of the stuff that's already happening with the demonstration pit?
Yes, so I mean, there will be a fairly large component of hire equipment in the project. So it depends on exactly the phase during this demonstration pit. There's earthworks equipment. There's other pumps, pipelines, generators, lights, all of those kinds of equipment that we will be needing, and we'll be hiring that from local suppliers in the Bansal region. Then during the operational stage of the project, there's always equipment that is hired, again, to be things like generators, mobile lighting. There's a lot of plant maintenance equipment like cranes, elevated work platforms, that kind of thing. So that will the majority of that, plus the light vehicle fleet, will be as hired equipment.
Okay. And if people want to, or companies want to nominate themselves, Stefan, and want to put in tenders or apply for jobs, I know that we've got a jobs board on our website that will soon be going live with a list of all of the operations roles. We're looking at about, you told me these numbers the other day, 400 FTEs in the construction phase of the project, 300 long-term jobs in the 400 FTEs in construction, 300 in operations. So we'll have those roles and jobs on our website shortly. If there are groups that want to inquire about the types of things that might be around or available in the demonstration pit, whether they be local companies, equipment hire or supply or whatever, how do they access those opportunities? Do we need to put something on our website, or can they email you or Mick, or how should they go about that?
Email the website, but I think it's probably a good idea to have a website button. That's something I think we can organise.
Okay.
Would be very good to receive inquiries.
All right. Well, we'll get a list of possible opportunities up online, and then how to go about either tendering or applying if you're interested in those opportunities. We've got 2 more questions in the chat. Don't be shy. One of them is around temporary tailing storage area. So when we start, obviously, where will the tailing storage be at the beginning, right at the beginning, and how will it be constructed? That's you, Stefan.
All right, I'll take that. Yeah, so previous proposal envisaged doing that by effectively filling the Perry Gully. That's something we've committed to moving away from and restoring those gullies. So we need space to store our tailings, obviously. How it'll happen in this case is we actually start overburden removal well in advance of starting commissioning of the process plant. So it'll probably be around about a year before we actually start processing material. We will start with mining to create that box cut area, and that'll be several million cubic meters of tailing space to create that initial storage space, and we'll stockpile ore that comes from that box cut, and that'll be used as commissioning ore and the period of first ore processing, so that we create that in-pit tailings buffer prior to commencement of processing.
Okay, thanks, Stefan. And the next question says, Kalbar had devised an elaborate system of dams to manage surface water runoff. What is GCM's proposal?
In principle, it is still the same. The same obligation is still required, that we need to separate any runoff from exposed areas from downstream receiving water bodies. So that is fundamentally still the same principle that applies. We cannot just let water run off freely into the Mitchell River or any tributaries of the Mitchell River. So there will still be separation dams between disturbed areas and undisturbed areas. That is a requirement, that there is no discharge from the site. What we are doing is by having smaller exposed areas and accelerating rehab, we are managing the size of those dams so that the upstream disturbed catchment isn't as large as it was previously, and also that the rate of rehabilitation vegetation in that upstream catchment is not as large as previously. Therefore, the dams are smaller in size, and water quality that they receive is improved. But the underlying principle of catchment dams, that is still part of the proposal.
Do you want to talk as well, Stefan, just while we're on that, about centrifuges, which were a part of the project proposed last time, but they're no longer a part of the project this time, and why that change was made?
Well, firstly, because it was a recommendation from the previous assessment that they be investigated to be removed. So they have been removed, and by moving into an in-pit disposal system, we know it's just much more efficient to deal with it as one tailing stream rather than to have separated fines tailings areas with sand tailings areas. So it just allows us to backfill the void, in a much more simple fashion, and we deal with it in a single location rather than multiple areas.
Okay. All right, we've got one more, couple more questions. One more. Will you be competing? I'm going to throw this one to you, Brian, because I know you're our water person. Will you be competing with current users for recycled and other water? I'll just briefly say that we're looking at existing license holders, borefield water from the deep Latrobe aquifer, and we're looking at recycled water as our water sourcing, but we've still got a long way to go with studies at the moment. Maybe, Brian, one way to think about this answer is also just to touch on, while we've got the opportunity, the groundwater and surface water studies and where they're up to and what they're looking at.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, look, in terms of competing with current users, we're obviously looking at various sources, as Michelle said. We're looking at what the allocations are and what potential going to be available. The overall water strategy is to have a diverse supply system, so not to rely on any one source, and in order to be able to sort of manage that over the project life. In terms of groundwater and surface water, existing surveys to develop existing conditions in terms of groundwater and surface water, in terms of what flows are, how they naturally vary, groundwater levels and groundwater quality. Both of those surveys have commenced, and we'll have a able to say in terms of what that means in terms of developing the overall water strategy. I think the key thing here to say, Michelle, and get across is that it was a big area of uncertainty in the last project. And in terms of how this project is going to be assessed, you'll have that clarity in terms of where the water is going to come from and what the effects from that is going to be. So it is work in progress.
It was a little bit tricky to hear you, Brian, there, but I think I got it, but I hope others did too. Are there any more questions from anybody? If you couldn't, I think we did struggle a little bit to hear that answer, Brian. Sorry to, no, that's okay. But we do have a recording of this webinar, and we'll get a transcript and a recording up online. So we'll have those words written out if anybody struggled to hear. Is there any more questions that anybody wants to ask? I've got one. It's a good one here. What happens if you find out the project isn't economically viable? I'll just say quickly up front, and Stephanie's doing the work on our feasibility study at the moment, which is the detail work, but it is, as you know, a project that's a resource itself that's very rich in high quality, high grade zircon, and that was the primary reason for the development that was proposed in 2020, 2021. Since then, heavy rare earths and light rare earths have become incredibly commercially viable and a real asset, real, desirable product on the global market and here in Australia as well. And, we know that we've seen Albanese and Trump do their deal, and that deal relates to heavy rare earths. And that's what is in this project. That's what's in the ground. And those heavy rare earths are, it was an economically viable project before in 2020, 2021. It is more economically viable now. It is 27% smaller in footprint, but that economic viability is offset by the value that is now contained in the heavy rare earths, which weren't even part of the real consideration, although they were part of the basket. They weren't worth anything back then, and they're, as you know, very valuable and very sought after now. So what's in the ground is something that is very special, and it is unique to anywhere else in Victoria because of the high quality coarse grain zircon that sort of makes it part of that mix. So we produce a heavy mineral concentrate, and that's what leaves, and in that basket, I guess, of goods of minerals is what creates that value. So if we find out the project isn't economically viable, I don't think that's a real possibility. I don't know if you want to jump in, Stefan. There, you're doing that feasibility study work. That'll be part of the impact assessment work, I think, won't it later, or did the community get to have a look at that?
Yeah, so I won't repeat what you said about the economic environment. Rare earth prices are fairly high at the moment and forecast to increase. What I will say about the economic assessment is we don't just run a single case on it. We run multiple sensitivities on both the input costs. What if fuel goes up? What if fuel goes down? What if labor goes up? What if labor goes down? What if prices, currently titanium and zircon prices are in a down cycle? That's pretty typical for any commodity. So prices go up, prices go down, and we run those sensitivities in the economic assessment for a range of cases, and we compare ourselves against other projects. Obviously, if the entire industry is not economically feasible, prices tend to correct themselves. But benchmarking ourselves against any of competitors, we are are very much not in the highest cost producers. So we are very confident that economic unviability is not something that's on the horizon. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just add quickly, when you sort of look at the other critical minerals projects in Victoria that are getting approved, what really sets ours apart is that, we've got no Chinese ownership of our company and we've got no Chinese offtake. So what that means is that, we've got a market that is different from those guys, other than Iluka, we're the only ones with that, is a UK Australian company. So that's where we're able to set ourselves apart. And that means, when that Trump deal is done between Australia and the US, that's how we're able to set ourselves apart. So that increases, I guess, the attractiveness of what we're producing here. So it's exciting and it's something, I think we can feel proud of. Somebody's asked on that vein, will there be an opportunity? I hope it's on that vein. Will there be an opportunity for locals to invest in the project in a share float? Maybe, I don't know. It's not on my plans this year, and I don't know if it's on the board's plans. But these things can move quickly. But I know that there are a lot of the other critical minerals companies in Victoria that are listed. VHM and others, but it's not something that's in our immediate plans. I think it has been planned but it's in the past, but it's not for this year. I don't think. It'd be great to be able to come up with something like that, though, because I think that would give a real sense of ownership for the project. So maybe I'll take those conversations forward if that's a opportunity suggestion rather than a question, because I think it does create that sense of help create a sense of local pride. But I'll find out. But I don't. It's not on my agenda this year. Where will the heavy rare earths be separated out? I'll touch on that. So the plan is we dig up the heavy mineral concentrate, so it gets concentrated, gets separated on site with gravity and water. Then we put it on the private haul road, and it travels down to a new proposed rail siding in Fernbank. It travels on the freight train from Fernbank to either the port of Melbourne, which is probably the most likely, but we've also looked at the port of Geelong. I think that has almost been ruled out, but we're still looking the final logistics studies. So, and then it goes on a boat, and the 2 places or 3 places we're looking at is obviously WA or the Northern Territory. They're the sort of 2 options. I was going to name companies and I decided not to. So we're looking at WA and Northern Territory as places that will be processed, and that's where the heavy rare earths get separated. So what leaves our site is what's known as a HMC. Stefan, do you want to expand on that in any way? I think I've captured it.
Yeah, no, nothing much to add. We don't do rare earth chemical separation on site. Our product is a mineral concentrate that will, as you said, will go to other producers in Australia to do the actual separation. Nothing more to add.
All right, I'll just quickly refresh just to make sure we haven't got any more questions. I haven't got any more coming through for me. I might just close out then. We will have this full presentation on our website shortly, hopefully, let's say end of the week at the latest, with the transcript and the video. Thank you everybody for attending. Thanks to the team, Mick, Stefan, Brian, Shannon, who's behind the scenes, who you can't see frantically moving between slides and everybody's materials. So thank you, Shannon, and I just want to thank everyone who's attended today, and to the community who have come and engaged with the project throughout the year, and will continue to participate over the next year or so, or however long before we go through this approval process. It's really important to have your feedback. It really does shape the project, and your local knowledge really helps inform some of the monitoring, the surveying work we're doing. So really appreciate that. As I said, and Mick said, we've got an office in Bairnsdale now, so come down in your time, and we'll also be on the road closer to the site at Fernbank, and places that you're gathering as well, part of the normal normal day so that, we're not interrupting your day, that you can just participate and tell us what you think or give us your feedback and ideas. We want to do a better job than was done last time. We think we are doing that, and it's really important that we hear what you think in order to get that right. So thank you again. Merry Christmas, and we're nearly there, and we'll see you in the new year most likely. Thanks, everyone.